A personal point of privilege. Let's do Senator Bowser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have an intern here with me today. Alyssa, would you just kind of stand up real quickly and wave at everybody? It's not like the room is crowded. She is a freshman at the University of Kansas. She's majoring in criminal justice and would like to go to law school, I think, someday. So she's got a very bright future ahead of her. And I will tell you, she's already a certified nurse's assistant and works part-time on that job too. So she's very busy, and she's doing a great job helping me out this week. So thank you and welcome.
Thanks for hanging out with us this morning. All right, well, our first hearing is House Bill 2145, substitute for House Bill 2145, a Committee on Local Government, establishing the Butler County Fair Board to consist of 15 members, providing for the appointment of members to such boards and allow up to 5 members of such board to be appointed from the county at large. So Charles, can you give us a briefing? Oh, you know what, you're fine right there.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Substitute for House Bill 2145 is kind of an interesting bill because it looks like it does a lot more than what it does if you look at the substitute bill. So if you actually, as introduced, what 2145 did was it just established an exception to the general provision for appointment of county fair boards that one can find in 2128. And just similar to the provision that currently an exception for Cloud County, the bill just provided a similar exception for Butler County. The main difference between Cloud County and Butler County is that Butler County gets 15 members appointed by the commissioners with 5 at large, and I think Cloud County was designated as having 12 with 1 at large. But as far as the other language pertaining to officers and other items, it's really the same. So what happened then with the substitute bill is that the House committee decided to put both the Cloud County exception and the new Butler County exception into the general statute at 2128. So there's really only, although there's a lot of changes that show in the substitute bill, the only substantive changes are actually the additions with respect to Butler County, the exceptions for Butler County that permit Butler County to have 12 members, or rather 15 members, I'm sorry, instead of the general provisions that you find in 2128. And the changes that you see in the substitute bill to the underlying statute there, 2128, those are all non-substantive changes. And the provisions pertaining to Cloud County that you see in the substitute bill, those are the same as in current law, although they show as new. And then, of course, the substitute bill gets rid of the statute that was amended in the original bill and just repeals it. There's just a reference to repealing that statute. So that's what this bill does. Stand for questions.
Any questions for Charles? All right, don't see any. So we do have a proponent on WebEx, William Johnson, Jr., Butler County Administrator. Do we have you, William? He's on WebEx, yes. He's not on WebEx. He's not here. Okay. Well, Charles, do we have any more questions for Charles?
I do.
Yeah, Senator Fascadeau.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Charles, what's the reason that they want to increase the membership to 15?
So unfortunately, there's no proponent to sort of explain the policy behind this, but I believe the change is kind of centered around the fact that under the general applicable provision 2-128, you have to have an appointee from each township. And so I think that's, there are some other differences too, but I think probably as I understood it, the membership of the board is kind of the main reason, that maybe they don't need quite so many members. But that's just speculation on my part. I don't really know what the underlying policy is.
I do see we'll just take William's his testimony is written, but in their first paragraph, that's exactly what they're saying, due to difficulty getting members on board from each township. I believe it's solving a problem that they have. Seems very self-explanatory there. Do we have any other questions? Senator Petty.
So Charles, thanks for that clarification about the underlying statute. So now Butler County, with their number of 15, they are, instead of coming from the townships, they're going to be appointed by the county commissioners. Or appointed, one member of the board should be appointed if possible from each county commissioner district, and not more than 5 members may be appointed from the county at large. So they're it's shifting it then to being the county commissioners making the appointments instead of them having to be coming from the townships.
So, yeah, basically, with the underlying statute, you have to have a representative of each township, as I understand it, and with the exceptions for Cloud County and now also for Butler County, if this bill passes, it would be, more limited in number and just from each commissioner district. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, you know what, that would be wonderful, Jay. How could we ignore you out there in the audience? So Jay Hall with the,
Jay Hall, Kansas Association of Counties. I can speak very briefly to the Butler County situation. Essentially, they would have, their fair board currently consists of 29 members, which is a very large board, because they have 29 different townships. So they are looking to change that so that instead of having 29 members, they can appoint, because they've been having trouble getting people to volunteer for that fair board with one person from each township. So they're just seeking to, one, cut that number down from 29 to a more manageable 15. The difference is with Cloud County, they have 3 commissioners. Butler County actually has 5. And so they are allowing for more appointments for each commissioner. So that's the overlay of what they're trying to do here with this particular bill. I can answer any kind of high-level questions with regards to this.
it's for Jay. We do have William trying to get into WebEx. We'll give him a few minutes. That does help, Jay, an awful lot. Thank you. Do we have any questions for Jay while we're waiting on William? You probably just gave most of the testimony. Yes, Senator Petty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Jay, I'm just curious, I mean, here we have Cloud and Butler County referred to with their fair boards and asking for an exception from the underlying statute, but I'm wondering if are you seeing this being a continual problem across other counties?
I think one of the distinctions with Butler County is that Butler County obviously is the largest county in Kansas by land area, and so they happen to have a lot of townships. I think in some of our other counties, they don't have quite as many townships, and so that's probably one difference that makes Butler County a little bit different than some of our other counties, is just that Butler County, just by land area, is so large and has a lot of townships.
Thank you.
That is very helpful. I am the senator for Cloud County, and I actually remember working on this when I first came in 19 years ago. It was surprising to find we had our own exemption, and that went back to Senator Ross Doyen's days. Have we had a carve out? So a lot of history with that. Yes, Senator Titus.
Just a suggestion, maybe we could suspend this hearing and move on to the next and then come back, get everyone online.
He's on there now. Okay. Oh, that was an excellent idea, though. So, William, can you hear us?
I can. Thank you for allowing me to do this remotely. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. And Jay Hall also spoke on your behalf as well. So you go ahead. We have your testimony in front of us. We think we have a good idea of what you need. And we were just told that you're the largest landmass of a county with 29 townships. So that makes sense to us. Thank you, William.
Essentially, this is pretty simplistic, and that's the real reason behind this. We have 29 townships. So at minimum, by current statute, it's a 29-member board. But over time, because they've had trouble getting people at different townships to be on the fair board, they've expanded that through at-large members to a 35-member board. And so it's just gotten too big, and we think this is a great opportunity, looking at the current statute with Cloud County, to modify that slightly for counties with 5 commissioners, to have a 15-member board, and the commissioners appoint those members and just clean it up. So that's what we're looking for. And further, it would allow other counties as well, through charter resolution, to enter into this. It doesn't force anybody to do anything, but it just gives some better opportunities for all counties in Kansas, with the exception of Johnson and Wyandotte, who have in excess of 5 members.
Okay. Do we have any questions for William? Okay, we have Senator Clays on WebEx also. All right, well, thank you, William. We had a good tag team in here. We had a reviser, Charles, and we had Jay, and we have you. So we have the big picture of your situation, and thank you for bringing us your solution.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
All right, we don't have any neutrals or opponents. If there's no more questions, let's close the hearing on House Bill 2145. And we'll move on next to House Bill 2160, enacting the Municipal Employee Whistleblower Act to provide statutory protections for municipal employees who report or disclose unlawful or dangerous conducts.
Madam Chair, I did have a follow-up question after his testimony.
Oh, I'm so sorry, yes.
So he referred to, and I wasn't sure I had read this into it, he referred to, so this actually does expand beyond Butler as to how the members of the Fair Board can be appointed. And he said something about it if you have a county commission that has 5 members. Is that correct, Charles? I guess I didn't notice that.
So generally, yes, because, I mean, just the broad perspective is because the law isn't uniform, it can be chartered in.
Okay, all right.
So sorry I missed you, Senator Petty, when I scanned the room. All right, now we'll officially close the hearing on 2145, and thank you for your question. And we'll open the hearing on House Bill 2160. And Charles, this is a very common topic to us. My first question is, does this mirror our Senate bill?
So the underlying as introduced bill does. The changes are minimal, but they make it different.
So you go ahead.
So thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Yes, so I imagine the committee's fairly familiar with the underlying statute. HB 2160 before you today is identical to Senate Bill 120 that you heard before, as introduced. So what the House committee did, I'll just quick turn to that is, number one, they did two things. Number one, they removed the whistleblower protection for disclosing a substantial and specific danger to public health or safety to any person, agency, or organization. And secondly, they added definitions for malfeasance and misappropriation. And as you recall, Senate Bill 120 and also House Bill 2160, that's one of the things that, one of the protections that, that are extended to municipal employees under the, both bills is that, you know, for disclosing malfeasance or misappropriation of money. So the House Committee added definitions for those. Malfeasance means unlawful conduct committed by any member of the governing body of a municipality or any officer or other employee thereof. And misappropriation was defined as the unauthorized or unlawful expenditure or transfer of monies held by a municipality. So as amended, this bill was pretty non-controversial. It passed the House 121-0. If enacted, it would become effective on July 1st, 2025.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Do we have questions for Charles? All right, nice job. Well, our first proponent is Jay Hall, Deputy Director of General Counsel, Kansas Associated Counties. Thanks for being with us today, Jay. You've been very helpful so far, and I'm sure you will on this one, too.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I am Jay Hall, the Deputy Director and General Counsel for the Kansas Association of Counties. I am speaking as a proponent on House Bill 21, or as a proponent on 2160. If you remember, I appeared as neutral on the Senate bill that mirrored this. Fortunately, we were able to sit down with Representative Barth and work through some things, and so we are now a proponent of this bill. As Charles mentioned, it does include the definitions, which is something that we mentioned during the hearing was important to us. We also mentioned during that hearing that Section C5, which is on page 2 of that bill, was duplicative, and so we eliminated that section. And with those changes, we are now a proponent of this bill. And with that explanation, I will stand for questions.
We do have questions here. Senator Blue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jay, and I may be premature, I know that our opponent is written only. Have you had a chance to look over that opponent testimony? I'd be curious. If so, your thoughts on the amendment? If not, could you get back to us on the amendment?
I have not had a chance to look at the opponent testimony, so I will have to get back to you on that.
I think it would be, I like to hear that you came from a neutral to a proponent, you worked with the other side on it. I'm just kind of curious if there's a couple more tweaks, if not, but I'd be interested when you have a time to look at it, what your thoughts are. Thank you.
Senator Petty.
So Jay, I'm just curious, as if a county or like a unified government, which is a county and a city, have their own ethics commission, how this intersects with that?
So this bill would essentially create a way for, if a city or county official felt that something inappropriate was going on, they would have the ability to report that, and negative employment action would not be able to be taken against them under this bill as a result of that. So if they reported malfeasance or misappropriation of funds, they would not be able to be fired or demoted as a result of reporting those incidents. That's essentially what this bill does. And if they were fired or demoted or had any sort of negative employment action taken against them, then they could go to district court and seek a remedy there.
Do many of our counties have their own ethics commission, though?
They do not have, most of them don't have ethics commissions. Some of them have other types of things internally that they may work through their HR departments, but nothing like an ethics commission necessarily.
I mean, the unified government does have an ethics commission and has these kinds of things in place. I mean, has a system in place already, so I'm just wondering if this
would just extend those protections so that even if your county doesn't have an ethics board or something like that, you'd be able to under this have your employment status protected.
Thank you.
Okay, Senator Fasquedo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Somewhat of a follow-up on Senator Petty's question. So is that only, so the whistleblower would not be reprimanded, is that only after some type of investigation to their, whatever they've said happened, to make sure that it's true?
Yeah, so they would, once they report it, obviously there would be an investigation to see if that was true, if that report was valid, all of those kinds of things. But they would no longer be subject to, if it is true, they wouldn't be subject to that negative employment action as a result of that.
All right, I see no more questions. Jay, thank you for being here. And do we have John Goodyear on WebEx? You see John? Okay.
Yes, Madam Chair, if you can
Good.
hear me.
Yes, so John Goodyear, General Counsel, League of Kansas Municipalities. Thank you for joining us, John.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Like you said, my name is John Goodyear, and I'm General Counsel for the League. Grateful for the opportunity to give testimony today, and specifically on WebEx. I appreciate the committee assistant and the work of the technology team. I just was able to get into the meeting, so they were doing tremendous work while you guys were starting the hearing on this bill. But like the Association of Counties, the League is coming in support on this bill. If you remember correctly, when the Senate bill was heard, we were neutral with some concerns. After that hearing, in advance of the House hearing, we were able to get in a room with Representative Barth and work through those concerns, and they've largely been addressed with these amendments. We are grateful to her. We're grateful to the House committee for implementing them. By defining malfeasance and misappropriation, I think we are truly getting to those illegal actions, the true whistleblower protection. So we're grateful for those changes. So in recognition of that work so far, that's why we've switched to support. That said, and Senator Blue brought it up, Overland Park has submitted opposition testimony. So I wanted to just kind of highlight their concerns. They're a member city. We've been working with them. And I put their suggested amendments. I've spoken with Representative Barth about them. I haven't gotten feedback from her yet to see if she thinks that those would be friendly amendments, but I can answer questions, or try to answer questions on those if anybody has them. And the city of Overland Park has indicated to me that if those changes were adopted, they would shift to a position of neutral on the bill. So just to kind of highlight what they would do, they kind of more closely define when these protections would not come into play. For example, there would be a good faith requirement. This information couldn't be shared with a motive of disruption. There's a good faith that you are reporting a violation of law instead of sharing false information with the intent of truly disrupting activities. There would also be a requirement in order to make use of the protections that it is a true whistleblower, and these are rooted in the common law retaliation claims. So when Overland Park brings these, they are rooted in something. They didn't just make these up. But you would have to seek the intervention of a higher authority, be it inside or outside of the organization, in order to be eligible for that whistleblower protection. You couldn't just bring it to a member of the public. It wouldn't preclude you from bringing it to members of the public. You could still share this activity that you think may be illegal with members of the public, but you would also need to report it to a higher authority, be it a legislator, an auditing agency, or someone in charged with enforcing those laws. It wouldn't have to be just inside the organization, which I know Senator Titus was concerned with as we talked about the Senate bill. So they could report it outside the organization. It just has to go to a higher authority to be eligible for these protections. And then the last thing to highlight is the creation of an administrative proceeding in those counties that have a civil service board in place. It would allow them to go have an administrative proceeding prior to going straight to district court, and which is something that Senator Petty mentioned with the unified government. So it kind of addresses some of those concerns that were brought up. We're happy to walk through any of those as much as I can. Again, these are from a specific city, but I thought I would highlight them. We're grateful for the opportunity to weigh in on the bill. We're grateful for the work that's been done on it so far, and we welcome the opportunity to try to address the concerns of our member city if we can. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, John. Let's see if we have any questions for you. Is Senator Blue?
Thank you, Madam Chair. John, I want to see if I understood what you said versus what I'm reading, or this.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the Overland Park testimony, and I'm looking at his second new subsection where it talks about the employee did not seek out intervention of a higher authority, including any member of the legislature or auditing agency. Could you go over that again? What he wants to implement?
Of course. Thank you, Senator, for the question. Committee, again, John Goodyear, General Counsel, League of Kansas Municipalities. What he's looking for there, and this is in common law retaliation claims that are currently brought in the state of Kansas, you have to demonstrate that you reported it to a higher authority, that you weren't just doing it to create a stir in the community. So they would have to report it to, it could be a member of the legislature, it could be an auditing agency, it could be the attorney general's office, it could be, in the case of a city, it could be the county attorney reporting a violation of law. It doesn't have to be, and it could be internally in the organization as well, but it wouldn't have to be. So there's no concern of adverse action based on the report in an organization, but just reporting to a higher authority to make sure that we are identifying the violation of law in an effort to remedy the violation of law or halt the corruption instead of just causing a stir. And I think in Overland Park's testimony, he cites to the case that kind of well defines that, where he gets that language from, and gives some language on what this is intended to capture. I might have butchered that, but I think that's about what we're talking about, Senator.
No, I appreciate that. I guess my concern is it common to make the legislature an HR department?
It is not, Senator. The reason that it references directly a member of the legislature is that comes from prior in the bill, from earlier in the bill. The information that could be shared, that would be entitled to protection. It also contains the entities or people that this information could be shared with, and it references a member of the legislature. It references a member of an auditing agency to include legislative post audit. I think the reason where that language is pulled from, this bill largely mirrors the protections for state employees in that regard. So he just pulled that specific language and put it in his section as well. Would leave it up to the committee whether that needed to be included.
Right. Okay. Well, I as somebody who is a HR professional in my other job, I just find that interesting that then we're going to have to start doing documentation. And I appreciate when people do come to me with their concerns, but if we want to do it the right way, I just worry as a citizen legislature what this could open the door to moving forward. So I just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Any other questions for John? John, if you're looking at, do you have Overland Park's testimony in front of you?
Yes.
So he's suggesting an amendment to section 1D4A. He wanted a new subsection, which we just talked about. And then he wants an amendment in section 1E. Do you see three pieces to this?
Yes.
Can you speak to the 1E amendment?
Yes. So that is the new creation of an administrative proceeding in those cities or counties that have civil service boards in place. It would allow those cities and counties, and I don't think we're talking about very many here. In cities, this isn't something we track, but I imagine it would only be cities of the first class that have a body like this. And I imagine it's not all of them. I would guess between 5 and 10 cities probably have something like this in place. But in cities where they have a board like this that is well suited, that is familiar with claims typical like this, they would be able to go through an administrative proceeding prior to going to court. And I think that benefits both parties. That's going to save the whistleblower. It's going to save them in expenses in finding an attorney and going to court and try to seek remedy. They could go through the administrative process first, which would be much more approachable, likely wouldn't need an attorney. And it would also save cities and counties that have these boards, it would save them the costs of having to go litigate.
Okay, so they would do this part first if we amended it into 1E. This is the cities, the first class would do this first, is what that amendment's saying, if they already have one.
Yes. So, and again, I don't think it's all 26 cities at the first class. If I had to guess, it's between 5 and 10. I might be surprised that there's more, but it's not very many.
Okay, do you have any questions for John? So, and the First Amendment to 1D4A.
Yes.
The basic on that is a good faith concern for wrongful activity.
Absolutely. That just speaks to the motive behind sharing the information. It's a good faith effort to stop the corruption rather than just an intent to disrupt.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Senator Petty.
So I want to direct this to Charles. So Charles, when I look at the amendment to section 1D4A, am I looking on page 2 on line 29?
Yes, that would be correct.
So then that line 29, if this amendment were accepted, would then, you would have the employee knows to be false, and then this would be inserted after the word false. Is that correct?
That's, Senator, that is how it's set out in the testimony.
Thank you.
Any other questions, committee? Okay, I don't see any. Thank you for being with us, John. You've given us some things to think about here.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, I'll draw the committee's attention to the proponents written only. And then our opponent, written only, Michael Koss, City Attorney, City of Overland Park. That is all we have on our bill brief. Are there any other questions on this bill? Okay, let's close the hearing on House Bill 2160. And I did reserve tomorrow to work bills. This one got a little more complicated, so we may need to chat about this one just a little bit longer. And we have, we had several bills that we could look at. I would like to hold off on Senate Bill 66 while I work on an amendment, unless we can get that ready for tomorrow. So just come prepared to work bills that we've heard. All right, I think that's all we have, and I will